springtime. It's springtime. Now, I know you can't tell it by the way I'm dressed, but I promise you it's springtime of the year. Welcome to the channel today. I'm going to talk to you guys about how to catch fish in the springtime of the year. Even when there's a stocking cap on your head and a goose down jacket like what you see me on right now. So, welcome. Make sure you subscribe to Mystery Tackle Box. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, Brian Latimer. We'll put a link in the description box where you guys can link up accordingly. What makes it springtime? All right, just a side note here. It's not something that we mark down on the calendar where you get to start fishing springtime baits just on a certain date. That's not how fishing works. When the weatherman says it's springtime, that means nothing to us as fishermen. What means everything to us as fishermen is things that you have to watch to know when to use certain baits and when to look for fish in certain areas of the lake or pond or river or wherever you fish. Is when the water temperature bottoms out and starts to warm. It doesn't even have to start to warm, but anytime the water temperature is as cold as it's going to get for the year, on top of the fact that the days start to get longer as we get into the spring, fish go shallower, they start to do different things. They know springtime is coming, so they start to do things all centered around the spawn. We call that the pre-spawn here, and I'm going to give you 3 baits that I promise you can catch fish on this time of the year, fished in the right areas. So I describe this time of the year as the pre-spawn. Typically the water temperatures are anywhere between 50 and 60 degrees depending on where you are. It's like the best time of the year to catch a big bass, and B, the most bass you're probably ever going to catch, at least in the southeast. You're going to catch a lot of fish this time of the year because fish are moving, they're very predictable, and no matter what the weather changes are, they're going to be moving towards spawning grounds. Regardless of how cold it is or what it does, they're thinking about eating and they're thinking about spawning. So it makes the fish really predictable. So with the fish being predictable, we get to use some baits that are pretty predictable as well. So they're really easy to catch. We get to catch fish on just about anything. If you look on my front deck behind me, you can see I've got everything from crankbaits to skirted baits to wire baits to soft plastics. Everything. You literally can probably catch a fish on just about anything right now. So with that being said, you probably want to try to narrow that down to a few things, especially if you guys are just starting to fish and you're just beginning to build your tackle inventory. You want to start to narrow that thing down to a few baits that you really can catch fish on. That's what I'm gonna help you with. So let's start with hard baits. All right, and matter of fact, pretty much everything I'm gonna tell you about today, it will be a hard bait. But one that's always worked great for me during the springtime of the year when the water's in the 50s, especially if you've got stain water. This guy right here, Lipless Crankbait. So this is the new Rattlebot, right? And it comes in 2 different versions. This is a bait fish version. I think there's about 10 colors in the bait fish version, just like this one, and about 10 colors in the crawfish version. And obviously most lipless baits are very they have a lot of sound characteristics to them, just like this one does. Well, with this particular lipless bait, the bait fish version is going to have a really high pitch volume, high pitch frequency, and then you're going to have a much lower pitch thud that goes with the crawfish version. So make sure you guys go and check it out. I'll put a link in the description box where you can check out all the colors of the new Prespawn rattle bait. This is a great bait for a couple reasons. It's a sinking bait, so I can vary where I put this bait in the water column. I can fish it in 1 to 3 foot of water over grass, over little gravel bars, rocks, boulders, places like that. But I also can let it sink down and fish in that 6, 8 foot range. If I'm fishing hydrilla, even though if I'm fishing off the bank in a pond, I can tell exactly how deep the water is that I'm fishing when I use this guy, because you can make it do whatever you want to do with it. So first bait that I'm going to talk to you guys about is this guy right here, a Lipless Crankbait. Rattlebots. I like the shad patterns this time of the year because most of the time fish are feeding on shad. They're trying to get fat, because what happens is once the fish beds, once he decides to nest and they're going to lay their eggs, they don't eat until those eggs have hatched. So when you catch a fish post-spawn, a lot of times people think post-spawn, after the fish have spawned, You think a lot of times it's because they've dropped their eggs and they've lost a lot of their body mass, and some of that is true, but a lot of it is because they've been on the bed for several weeks protecting the nest and they haven't eaten. So that's why they're so small. So they know that time period is coming and they're going to eat as much as possible during this time of the year. So places that I'm going to fish the Rattlebot, long points, shallow grass, in the backs of pockets and little ditches, especially if I see fish busting on shad. I've seen some fish out here busting on shad today. Places like that is where I'm going to fish it, where I know shad should be and there's a lot of food. Creek channel turns, places like that are always going to be optimum place to fish a lipless crankbait, and especially the Rattlebot, because it has that drawing power with the sound characteristics. It's just got the perfect bait fish profile. All right, so I'm going to shock you guys with this next one. The next one that I'm going to talk to you about is probably going to shock you, but just give me a chance. This is the new Googan Revolver. And you say, dude, why are you about to talk about top waters and you're wearing a stocking cap? I get it. Trust me, I get it. I understand why this seems a little weird. But just listen, just for a second. You guys, if you've seen this bait, this is a plopping style bait made by 𝗙𝗹𝗹𝗶𝗹 called the Revolver. Let me tell you why it works so good this time of the year. When the water gets in that upper 50s, starting to touch 60, especially if you live on a largemouth fishery where there's an abundant population of largemouth. Largemouth, when the sun comes out and the water gets in the upper 50s, they do what I call sunning. So they'll get under docks. If your lake or fishery doesn't have docks, they'll get as shallow as they can, because that water, the shallow water this time of the year, is going to warm the fastest. Okay, so those fish are going to be in that shallow water. Well, a lot of times they'll hang up so high in the water column that casting a shaky head, casting a Texas rig or crankbait, it doesn't work, because you're putting the bait below the fish. So a lot of times, especially just like today, if you find the proper areas where fish are sunning and they're sunbathing, they're looking to catch those rays and just warm up a little bit from those cold temperatures, in the right situation, a topwater like this is so annoying, because it's the only thing that you can put right in their strike zone. If they're only 2 or 3 foot above below the surface and this comes buzzing along, I can promise you he's going to react to it. And reaction is the name of the game this time of the year. That's why you see us throwing crankbaits, because they deflect off our structure. We throw jerk baits because maybe we're fishing over deep water, but the fish is suspended, but that erratic action makes the fish react to it. Well, a lot of times we can't fish those baits when the fish are hanging out in less than 2 foot of water. So a topwater is the perfect option before that, because it stays in the strike zone, and the fish almost always want to feed up, especially this time of the year, because they're a little lethargic. Something comes buzzing across their nose, they can't stand it. So try this guy. It's got a very annoying sound. That's why it works so good. The Googan Revolver. Try it when that water temperature gets in the upper 50s. I promise you, you will not be disappointed in what this guy will do. All right, so the final bait that I want you guys to definitely throw this time of the year, skirted baits. Anything with a skirt on it, it's gonna catch a bass this time of the year. In the springtime, I don't care if it's a spinnerbait, a chatterbait, a jig. Heck, you could put a paper clip and put a skirt on it, it'll probably catch a fish. This is a chatterbait right here. Everybody knows what a chatterbait is and what it does. Throw it out, wind it back, bass comes to get on it, right? Spinnerbait, same thing. Throw it out. A lot of times you got to be a little bit more intentional with the spinnerbait about keeping it down in the water column, so you kind of have to slow down a little bit. But if you throw a spinnerbait around, if your pond or lake or river, whatever you fish, has wood structure around it, I like it a little bit better than say the lipless that we talked about earlier, because you can weave it through structure a little bit better. The spinnerbait is very versatile. A lot of times in the spring, our water, we get a lot of rain. So our water in the creeks where fish are trying to go and spawn, a lot of times will blow out. When I say blow out, they'll get muddy from all the fresh rainwater coming in during the springtime of the year. What I like about a spinnerbait, you see how big and bulky this thing is? It's huge. It has a big bulky profile. So when the water gets muddy, when it gets dark, I got something with drawing power. I got blades that are throwing off flash and vibration. Then I have a skirt that's bulky, that's throwing off flash and vibration. With the colors, I get the flash. With the movement, I get vibration, drawing card. And also, I can change the weight or the style of the blades and make this spinnerbait do totally different things. This is a tandem willow, so it works better in a little bit clearer water, or when I want to keep the bait down in the water column, get it deeper. I can switch it to Colorado blades and fish it over wood logs, keep it up high. I can fish it in muddy water and draw more vibration. So it's just a really versatile lure to use during the springtime of the year because you can use it in so many different water conditions. Most of the time during the spring, I don't care where you live, you're gonna have some of your most volatile water conditions. It's going to rain a lot, the water is going to be muddy, then it's going to be clear, it's going to be low, then it's going to be high. So you need baits that are versatile, that you can change up and throw around wood, or throw when it's muddy, or put it around all different types of structure. So any of your skirted baits, even the chatterbait, the spinnerbait is what I've been talking about, even the chatterbait, a great bait to use because you can do so much with it. This one really excels when you're fishing around grass. So if you have hydrilla, coontail, lily pads, any kind of aquatic vegetation, I probably would go with the chatterbait over the spinnerbait. Just because if you get any kind of weeds tangled up in the spinnerbait, pretty makes it non-functional. But the chatterbait, you can throw it out, rip it through the grass, rip it through the lily pads, but you don't have to narrow it down just to fishing around aquatic vegetation. Today I've been skipping it around docks, I've been putting it under pontoon floats, so it's a very versatile lure and it skips very well. So you guys, even on a bait caster, you can skip this guy. Has a lot of vibration, a lot of drawing power, and it's versatile. So chatterbait and spinnerbait, throwing those in the springtime, I promise you, if you got these two tied on, you're probably doing the right thing. Hey, so I hope you like those tips. If you got any questions, make sure you guys type them in the comment section because I'll be checking behind them to try to help you guys out further if I can. Try them out on the lakes that you fish, the ponds, the rivers, wherever you guys fish. I promise you, I use the same baits when I fish ponds, lakes, rivers, no matter what it is. The same baits still catch fish for me. So try them out. Let me know how it works for you. I promise you, I put a lot of time in the water in the spring because it's my absolute favorite time of the year to fish. And I promise you, I've caught a lot of fish on these baits this time of the year.